So on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about my personal new guitar day. So a lot of times on this channel, we're doing a lot of deep dive reviews of all kinds of guitars and explaining things to you guys. But today it's just about why I wanted this guitar. Of course, I'll do a little bit of the geeky stuff and deep dive on it because I'm sure you guys are going to be curious about it as it's a new guitar. So let me give you the walk down first. So a couple years ago, I got super curious about headless guitars to the point where I was like, you know, am I missing out on something? I want to know more. And so I know a lot of you are like, oh, I hate headless guitars because the guy who took my girl at prom played a headless guitar. Here's the deal. I went out and I got a eArt guitar. I'll put a link to that video. That guitar being about $300, stainless steel frets. I was really impressed with it. And of course, you know, once I've kind of put my toe in the water of headless guitars, I go, what else is next? Well, of course, it was a Strandberg guitar. For the record, I still have a Strandberg True Temperament fret guitar that I absolutely love. And then I just kept going down that rabbit hole. There was a couple things that I did not like about headless guitars. And it's not that it doesn't have a headstock. It's that I'm 6 foot, and sometimes I feel like the guitar is just really tiny and I'm really hunched over playing them. The Strandberg's a little nice because it sits up a little high, but it's just, I feel like I'm just, again, my arms are in like this, if this is something that makes sense to you guys. So in January of 2024, I went to the Kiesel event and I did a clinic there and I met this amazing guitar player named Tim Miller, who also has a signature guitar with Kiesel. And we actually hung out after the event. He was super humble and amazing. I just got to tell you, you got to love someone who's talking to you and out of nowhere is like, oh, and then when Eric Johnson called me up and said, hey, can you learn a bunch of my songs and come on the show tonight? I was like, oh yeah, that happens to me all the time. Anyways, okay, so what happens? Tim Miller is an amazing teacher, performer, guitar player. I will put a link to his website and his information. He teaches at Berkeley. Let's just say the who's who has learned from this person. But he's also a very tall guy, much taller than me. I don't know how tall he is. 6'4" for sure, because the entire time we were hanging out, I was looking up. So there you go, 6 foot, I'm looking up. So anyways, he was talking about his guitar, and so I made sure to put my hands on one, and I fell in love. This is the Tim Miller in what's called Monster Burst, which is purple to blue. I thought that was awesome. So as always, I've had this guitar for over a month, and even though this is just my personal guitar and not so much an official video of the channel, I still always come at this with try not to have like the instant reaction, oh my goodness, I love this guitar, it's amazing, go buy one yourself. I want to come at it like, here's what I've learned, I liked about it, here's what I don't like about it. Okay, with that being said, let's get into the geeky stuff. Starting out the headstock, there is none. This is a headless guitar and it has the hip shot headless system on it. So what you have is a locking system here that you run the string through and lock it. This doesn't require double ball strings like some of you guys probably remember from the 80s. Use a normal set of strings. Then it goes right to a graphite nut, and then you have an ebony fretboard on this one, but of course you could get maple, rosewood, you name it. Then I did black inlays right there and aluminum inlays on the side, so these glow on the side. Then we have 22 medium jumbo Jescar stainless steel frets. This does not come with a 24 option, so you get the Tim Miller, you can only get 22 frets. The other thing that's also very exclusive to this model is you can only get the 14-inch radius fretboard. It's not offered in any of the other radiuses. So if you need a different radius or more frets, you could look at other models. Now this is the beautiful part. This is called Monster Burst. They have something called Reverse Monster Burst. Reverse just means the outsides would be purple and the inside's blue. These are done only by Jeff Kiesel, so Jeff Kiesel stained this one. This is a beautiful maple cap. Something that's important to mention is that what you have here is a 1/4 inch real maple cap. This is not a veneer, but it has an arm carve. And normally you would see where they maybe use a thicker piece of wood and then sand it down at an angle, and then the flamey wouldn't be as consistent. What they do here is they actually bend this to contour. That is unique. You're not going to see it everywhere. Using the scope camera, looking inside, you just see a bunch of mahogany and maple, and there's nothing really exciting in here. It's just chambered. Looks really clean. Of course, this is a chambered guitar, so you have an F hole, or I don't know what you call this. It's a boomerang hole. It's like Like if you're Australian, there's no option to delete that. It comes with a hardtail hipshot bridge. They do have an hipshot tremolo option on other models, not on this one. Again, Tim Miller doesn't use the tremolo, so no tremolo option. Then you have two pickups. You can pick your pickups. I picked two beryllium pickups, and then I asked them to have them covered like a nickel cover, but black. And I thought it would look great. Then we have a volume and tone control and a 5-way switch. We'll go over that switch in the playing session. And no push-pull or coil splits because that's built into this 5-way super switch. Now this is where it gets a little interesting. Let's flip it over. Even though this is a signature instrument, you can get multiple different ways of doing it. I chose mahogany body with a one-piece quarter sawn neck through maple neck. Now you can get a multi-laminate neck. You can get mahogany. Now this is where it gets interesting. So they gloss the body, go here, and then they tape it off and then make this satin. This is just tongue oil on the maple and it feels fantastic. The other interesting thing we'll go over in the Tim Miller, the strap buttons are in strange places. So instead of center here, it's up above. And instead of on the horn, it's right here. They leave this as natural. So just keep that in mind. So if you get multi pieces, looks great. And can we just soak in that top? Absolutely gorgeous. Looking at the action, we're sitting in at 1.5 millimeters off the 12th fret. So this comes in really nice and low, and that's pretty consistent across. Okay, and then looking at the neck, it's very straight. Just a little teeny bit of relief in the neck. And looking at the weight is at 6.5 pounds. I mean, that's pretty light. Looking at the scale length, we're looking at 25.5-inch scale length on this guitar. And again, this guitar does not come with a 24 3/4 option. Let's go ahead and check the frets. Oh, there you go. No, I'm just kidding, man. I had to mess with you guys. Okay, so there you go, no dead frets. And of course, the frets are very shiny. And if you watch my Kiesel factory tour video that's not edited, it's just one continuous shot, you'll see that they have a really cool way of polishing the stainless steel frets, basically using a steel wool buffer. And that's how they get them so shiny. Stainless steel, once it's polished, it's amazing. It feels perfect. But getting it polished is a little bit of work. A lot of techs and luthiers will say that it's hard to get all the micro scratches out of the stainless steel frets. It is. And so these are one of the people that can do that. Let's go ahead and test the fret ends. So as you guys know, we check things with a sock to see if there's any snags or problems. Let's go ahead and do the treble side. It's absolutely perfect. That's a 5 out of 5. Let's do the bass side. And again, 5 out of 5. And this guitar has been here for 30 days. And it's here in the desert where I live in Arizona before the testing is done. I have had some of my Kiesels fretboards shrink after a couple weeks here in Arizona. Out of all the Kiesels, I'd say only 1 or 2 out of the 6 or 7 did it. It is very unique, but it has happened, and that's why I wanted to say this one's doing great. And the ones that did it were also ebony, so it's not like it's at one fretboard's better than the other. So let's go ahead and take the cavity cover off. Now, I'd like to point out, you can get this in ebony. I have done a couple of my guitars with ebony backplate instead of plastic. I love the ebony more. It's just more money. It has foil on the back, and then this is a piece of felt, and that's there so that obviously this piece of foil does not touch any of these terminals and ground anything out. Okay, a couple things to note. The screws that hold the backplate on have brass threaded inserts, so you can take this off as many times as you want and you don't have to worry about stripping out the wood. The other thing is, a lot of people probably focus on these small potentiometers, and a lot of times I've seen YouTubers call these alpha pots even though they're not alpha pots. Alpha is a brand, it's not a size of potentiometer. These are Bourne's potentiometers. These are actually very high quality. They're just really small, and there's a couple reasons why they use them. One, it's because they like the solid shafts they come with, and also sometimes for size constraints issues. This is why they use them. These are two 500K Bourne's potentiometers, and we have here is a treble bleed right here, and then here's your capacitor for your tone control, and then of course here's your super switch, and that's allowing you to get different combinations of pickups, you know, whether you get humbuckers, it's 2 single coils or 1 single coil. We'll go over that. That's what the super switch is for. The other thing that's interesting to note is they do shield it with copper tape. They don't use shielding paint. This is all done by hand, and they leave an edge right here. And that way the shielding on the cover touches the copper shielding and creates a Faraday cage. A Faraday cage, or a Faraday shield, is an enclosure used to block some of the electromagnetic fields. So in this case, it can be done with multiple pieces. So what we're seeing is they insulated the cavity and then they close it with the cover. So this is a fantastic way to insulate the guitar. Looking at the output jack, you see they use the larger metal plate here, which I think is great. So it's impossible to break this. If you break this, man, I don't know what's going on. And then you're gonna have a Switchcraft output jack, and then right here on the plate, it's going to have a serial number and then Made in USA. And that's where they put the Made in USA, right there. The finish is essentially a polyurethane finish, and they use a lot of buffing time, and that's how they get it so glossy. Kiesel makes a bunch of different pickups. These are berylliums, which are gonna be more of a vintage vibe, where the lithiums are going to be more of a modern vibe. The thing that's important to know is that you can actually ship Kiesel any pickups you want. So in other words, if you ship them Fishmans, DiMarzio's, Seymour Duncan's, Bare Knuckles, they'll put them in for you. You just have to make sure they're there when they start the process of the guitar. Looking at this guitar, the bridge pickup is sitting in at 8.68K. The neck pickup is 7.92. Now looking at the inductance, we have the bridge pickup at 5.00 and the neck pickup at 4.43. Looking at the guitar pricing, this guitar starts at $2,249. The important thing to understand is that adding features only improves the way it looks, not in its performance. So it's standard semi-hollow, it's standard stainless steel frets, it's standard neck-through body, but you can add more things, obviously, to increase in price. This is made in California, but let's look at some of the competitors. So the first guitar I would consider if you're looking in this price range is looking at the semi-hollow Strandberg that's offered in the market. It's $2,349 and it's crafted in Indonesia. It's a very beautiful guitar. And of course you can get Strandbergs for less, but I was looking at a competitor that's kind of semi-hollow and most like it. Another amazing guitar to look at is the Mayanez Hydra Elite Pro 6. This guitar is fantastic. They're gonna go from $4,000 to $6,000. This one at $5,768. And lastly, if you're considering a headless guitar, you could look at the Ibanez one. This one also is made in Indonesia, but this one's sitting at just under $1,100. Okay, so now before we do the playthrough, I want to talk about a couple things. The output jack on this guitar is like straight down. It's kind of a strange position, right? I think it's okay when you stand. The guitar is perfectly set. Now, of course, some of you guys are gonna think this is high. I believe Tim wears it kind of high. This is kind of where I would play it as well, but you could go a little lower. Very comfortable. And then in the sitting position, this is perfect again, because it's just putting it in that perfect position. So in this position, which is not normally I would play, I think you'd be most comfortable because the jack goes straight down. It's on this side of your leg. This is position here. Now, where I would play it, more of the cowboy position, again, the jack isn't doing have any issues for me sitting here. This is where I play it normally. And I prefer to play it in this position, to be honest with you. But one thing I wish they would have done is I love the positions of the strap buttons. In fact, I kind of wish they would have done two. So put one in the center, put one here, and then put one in the back, and then put one here. And some of you guys probably say that's overkill, too many buttons, but I don't know, I like options. I told you guys I'd explain the switches, super easy. The first position is gonna be your humbucker, then it goes to a coil split, it's just a single coil right there. Then in the middle, it's two single coils. Then in the fourth position, you have a single coil neck, and then you have a humbucker neck. So it's pretty much all you need. You have humbucker and coil split on both pickups, and then the only thing you don't get is two humbuckers at any point. There's no way to put them back to two humbuckers. And before we start, I'm running a Fender Princeton. I'm gonna run a delay pedal, and I'm running an OD11 overdrive. I'll have a looper. So let's start with the middle position. Again, like I said, two single coils, and we'll loop that as the backing track. Here we go. That was your neck humbucker and neck single coil layered on top, so you get that stratty tone that you were getting. Let's go ahead, switch it over. I'm going to go to a 87 overdrive. Okay, so let's just go through all the pickup settings so you can hear those. Here, starting with the bridge. Here we go. This is the bridge single coil. Here's the 2 single coils. The neck single coil. Okay, and of course now the neck humbucker. We obviously do something called the handshake on the channel where we hold it in this position to see how comfortable it is. It's literally made for holding it there. It's perfect. Upper access is fantastic. You can get to everything perfectly. Okay, so some final thoughts on the guitar. Well, obviously I absolutely love it. Plays fantastic, sounds fantastic, and like I said, it sits perfect. I feel like I'm actually holding a full-size guitar now again, and not a smaller headless guitar. However, something to point out that I would change. I would change 2 things. In fact, one thing I'm going to change. If I could go back in time, I would have just went with a mahogany neck through. I think the mahogany would have saved a little bit of weight. And recently I played a Kiesel with a mahogany neck, and I really liked the feel of it. I was concerned that I wouldn't like the feel of the mahogany kind of tongue oil neck versus the maple, but I actually like them both the same. So mahogany neck would have saved a little bit of weight. This guitar is super light, but it could have been super lighter, and that would have been cool, because like I said, as a guitar like this, you're trying to go for something ultimate light. The other thing I'm going to change is the knobs. I was thinking about getting the plastic Strat style knobs, but I didn't think they look right, so I ordered these. But I have these cool aluminum knobs that are kind of like Strat knobs for aluminum. I'm going to put those on top because I like knobs where I can see where the volume is. I don't like to guess when I'm turning it. I like to look down. I'm constantly using my volume control, and I like to know if it's full or if it's back a little bit, because I do tend to run everything a quarter turn back. I kind of run the amp a little hard, and then I back it off on the guitar a lot when I'm playing personally. So that's one thing I'll change. But other than that, gorgeous guitar. I mean, look at that. It's gorgeous. So fantastic. Fantastic job to the Kiesel guys. Fantastic job to Tim Miller. New guitar day for me. And I want to thank you guys for hanging out to the end of the video. As always, it really helps the channel a lot. And as always, I guess, thank you for your time, and know your gear.